Hi everyone, and welcome back to We Need to Talk About, a video podcast series where Digital Spy gets together to chat about the latest, biggest moments in TV. I'm David Opie, the Deputy TV Editor at Digital Spy, and this is Ali, the Social Media Editor. Today, we're going to be chatting about What If, Marvel's new animated series on Disney+.
Reality. It's changeable.
Every universe is different. Each one unique.
Okay, so the first episode of What If just dropped this morning. Let's talk initial reactions. Ali, how did you feel about that first half-hour episode?
Yeah, I liked it. It's difficult, isn't it? Like, I think I was talking to my partner this morning about like the kind of like anticipation or like the expectations you bring into like a Marvel thing now, especially like obviously we're like 8 months into this like crazy year of the MCU where we've had like WandaVision and Falcon and Soldier and Loki and now Black Widow and now this, like every month we're getting something new, and so kind of our expectations are all over the place. And obviously like if you've seen me and David chat before, like WandaVision was the thing that we loved the most, and like, you know, we kind of like, my expectations are all over the shop. But I tried to go into this thinking, okay, it's a half an hour animated show. It's not going to be, and not in a derogatory way, but just like kind of set my feelings around that, if that makes sense, and like not expect anything groundbreaking. And that's kind of what I got. Like, I enjoyed it for what it was, if that makes sense. I think maybe I would have liked a bit more meat on the bone per se, but I guess you are kind of limited with these single concept, single episode structures.
Yeah. It's funny because, you know, obviously they need to tell a complete story and they're very driven by the premise, you know, how zany it is and how offbeat it might be. But like, yeah, you need to have that narrative meat, as you said, you know, that bone to it. And like, yeah, I enjoyed it. The first episode, it's fun. And I get, you know, it's kind of the inversion of Captain America's first film, which also was like a fun, like 40s style chaos. Sure, you know,
yeah, exactly.
You can tell they wanted to channel that, and they did a great job of that. But I just wanted more, and I feel like there was a lot more they could have done with kind of that gender reversal. I know it was kind of obvious, but there's implications they could have gone in with, and it just felt very surface level.
It was very like Peggy Carter girl boss surface level. Like, she had a catchphrase about being in the room, and like obviously that, it's, you know, not to take away from like, well, you know what, it's cool to see Peggy Carter take on the mantle. It's cool to see Captain Britain essentially in this way. Like, those things are really cool, and Peggy Carter's a great character, and Hayley Atwell's like across the MCU past like 10 years or whatever done a great job of bits and bobs with that. But yeah, this felt a very surface level, like it didn't, I guess maybe it didn't have time to dig into like the gender dynamics of it all, but when it did, it just kind of felt like it was lip service without much else. Yeah, it was. Again, it's tricky. I liked it, and I like Hayley Atwell, and I think it was fun to see Peggy Carter on screen again at the end of the day. So I wouldn't take that away from it.
Definitely. And I mean, you know, like people loved Agent Carter so much, so it's just so gratifying to see her get that lead role again, even just for a little bit. But you know, it's funny as well. I feel like the way the Disney Plus shows have rolled out, you know, because WandaVision and Loki, even Falcon and Soldier, they're all such big deals, and I feel like it's interesting that this has been lumped in with that. I feel like the expectations have been raised a bit higher than they needed to be. You know, if this was just a separate side thing, then people would be like, oh, it's a fun cartoon that explores extra bits. But coming on the back of all them, I think everyone is expecting something huge and momentous, which is hard to do.
And you're playing in the, like, I guess my fun like initial bit was like you're playing in the MCU toy box in that way, like, and so people are going to bring that baggage. Like, this episode, we have like the redo of the first Avengers Super Soldier like scene. We have Zola is back. You see Red Skull. Like, there's a version of the Iron Man essentially. Like, it wants to use all the MCU stuff, and so of course people are going to kind of like expect a certain level of something. I guess I was surprised that it traded obviously so heavily. Like, if you're watching this, you've seen the MCU movie. It's probably like, I doubt very much anyone's going into this Peggy Carter animated episode being like, I wonder who she is. And I think through leaning on that, we kind of took shortcuts. Like, we didn't get a lot of character work. Like, we didn't get any like big character moments really, and the ones we did kind of fell a bit flat, which was a shame.
That's really interesting, yeah. Like, because you can take shortcuts but still have that development too, I feel, in theory. But like, you're right. Maybe that reliance on those shortcuts, knowing what we all know already, they didn't feel the need to flesh stuff out. But then that can be a hindrance too. So yeah, it's interesting. But it's funny what you said about Captain Britain. I was like, Captain Britain, not Carter, but like, but we'll get Captain Britain one day.
Yeah, one day. Yeah, I guess like to go into like specifics and stuff. I think obviously we can talk about like the animation and the voice acting as well, because I do want to talk about, obviously they're a big part of what's carried this show. But in terms of just like the plot and the writing that we got, I think talking about that shortcuts thing and like bringing pre-existing knowledge of the MCU in, like one of the things we know about Peggy Carter now at this point, in 2021, is like her relationship with Steve Rogers and like how that developed over time, and their kind of romance is like one of the first romantic things in the MCU, and lots of people like really dig that, whether you ship Steve and Bucky more than you ship Peggy and Steve, but like that is a thing, and I was kind of, that would have been the space I think this episode could have given us a bit more in. Like we have Peggy and Steve scenes, and their relationship is the constant thing. Like it was in the original timeline and it's in this, but I felt like that was the space they could have played with more and like given us more nice real moments between the two of them, because we get like, Steve's doing the physiotherapy and she's there and they're training together, and like there's tension there, and it's cute and it's romantic, but I would have liked a bit more of that. Maybe that could have felt more central to the story.
Yeah, definitely. I guess it was more about mirroring the hero's journey is what they went with, but like, yeah, they definitely could have done more with a really cute dynamic they have. And it's really nice, I don't know, for fans, I guess, to see that kind of, it's a universal thing almost.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what dimension, what alternate reality you're in, they're still always going to end up together, which is very cute.
Yeah, that is really cute. I do think it was very funny. Like, not this is unmean, but like the visuals of like tiny weedy Steve Rogers and this huge 6'5" Peggy Carter was just very funny. It reminded me of do you know the meme that's like it's the picture of Taika Waititi from Ragnarok, where she's in like giant heels and he's there like, look at my picture. Like it was just, yeah, it made me laugh, just the dynamic.
Or Drag Race UK with Ginny Lemon at the back.
Yeah, exactly.
I love that. But yeah, but like you mentioned earlier, we need to talk about the animation. Obviously, that's so super central to this medium and the way it comes across. And for me, it felt a bit flat. Literally, perhaps, I don't know. It was kind of a weird. There were kind of combined effects in 2D and 3D, and then some cell shading. And for me, it just kind of lacked character. I don't know how you.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. Like we've kind of spoken about, like, the MCU-ness of it all, and like where the writing worked, maybe didn't. But for me, my enjoyment of this show was kind of always going to hinge on how much I clicked with the style. And like both you and I are like, we like animation, we like anime, we like different kinds of things. So I've got like a pretty broad. Like I like lots of different styles of animation. So I went in kind of giving it the benefit of the doubt. Yeah. And I think, like you said, some bits of it worked. Some of the kind of more traditional looking 2D like backgrounds, what really worked to me, like there's shots of Red Skull's like lair and his castle, and that almost looks like painted and has a really cool kind of matte effect. But yeah, a lot of it was the characters for me, like the character animations, the designs, because they were in that kind of like almost like rotoscoped, cel shaded, flat 2D style. They weren't expressive enough, and so I didn't really connect with them in that way.
Yeah, same for me too. And I wonder if part of that as well as the animation style specifically, but as well, like, the MCU style can be a bit flat, for want of a better word, in terms of kind of lacking characters, because it's very uniform. It's trying to cover so many different genres and types of film, and I wonder if that doesn't help either when you translate it into animation.
Yeah.
I wonder if something more exaggerated, comic booky, perhaps, like in traditional sense, would have been more powerful.
I think so. I think like it's really cool. Like we're in this kind of like kind of almost golden age of like big budget streaming services are like pouring money into animated stuff. And I think we could have, even if it had been, we could have had something almost like Invincible from Amazon Prime earlier this year, which was like a very faithful from the page to the screen kind of style of animated show. And again, it was a superhero show, but in that kind of classic, it looked like a very like high budget Saturday morning cartoon, right? And that was really cool. And the animation was really, really good and was a really strong point of that. Like something like that would have worked, I think, really well here. And obviously Marvel has a history of really like beloved animated shows. And it's a kind of a shame for me that this, I don't think, is going to fit into that. You think about like, Amazing Spider-Man and the X-Men cartoon and those shows people love, like it would have been cool to get a new kind of like classic 2D maybe animated show from them.
Yeah, and it's funny. I mean, I'm obsessed with the X-Men 90s show and the Spider-Man one too. But it's funny, you know, I feel like in the last 10, 15 years, Marvel's animation in general hasn't been as strong. I feel like DC has had a lot of bigger, like, the animated films have been huge and really successful, and the Justice League series was quite old now, but you know what I mean? There's a lot of DC kind of taken the lead, I feel, since the 90s, and now this could have been a really good opportunity with this really big budget. Everyone's talking about What If, but I don't, like you say, it's not going to be a classic.
It's going to have us asking, what if it was a different animation style?
What if? And I've watched 3 episodes, so I'm not just basing this on one, so I can feel a bit more confident in saying that.
Yeah, I think as well, like the other two things are like, so I think a 2D like Invincible style, high budget, like flat looking show would have been really cool. I think you could have almost done something. And I'm not a massive fan of Love, Death and Robots, but like this is ostensibly an anthology series, so it would have been cool if they'd have done like maybe different animation styles for each episode. Which I mean, again, I've only seen the first, but knowing that you've seen all 3 and we've seen in trailers that this style carries through all 9 episodes, like that could have been really fun if you'd done different styles for each story.
I would have loved that. That's such a good idea, because they're very, you know, each episode is like a very different genre, much like a lot of the Marvel films themselves. So that would have lent itself so well, you know, especially with, I haven't seen this one yet, but the zombie one coming up, you know, that could have done something really inventive with the horror.
Yeah. And like now I'm just like giving spitballing ideas about cool animated shows. But so I was thinking as well after watching it, like Marvel and Disney are putting out like quite a few different original animated shows on Disney Plus, and the animation styles there kind of like vary quite a lot. And so like you've got like obviously like MODOK looks completely different, and I know MODOK is Hulu as well, but MODOK has that kind of like Robot Chicken 2D like toy model stop motion vibe going for it. You've got Bad Batch, obviously like the Star Wars show, has this like incredibly high like really high fidelity 3D animation going on, which I think even that could have worked because it's kind of like realism but stylized. You've got Disney have done these like short 2D animated classic series, so there's like a Mickey Mouse series on Disney Plus at the moment for kids, which is like really hyper stylized in 2D, which is cool. They've just done Chip and Dale, which is like really watercolory. Like they obviously it's Disney, right? Like there's one thing Disney cares about is animation, and they could have taken lots of different tacks, and I was surprised that we got what we got.
I suppose I agree, but I suppose as well it's Marvel more in that sense, you know, because Marvel do play it safer, like in terms of visuals at the very least. But yeah, you're right. Just because it's Disney too and it's at home, there's so many things to compare it to, which it doesn't quite live up. But it's cool, and I mean, it's funny. I used to love the What If comics as well when I was growing up, and like the premises are always great. But then even the premises I love most, I always felt like they never really knew where to take it. Like in the comics, and I'm feeling that here too. Like because you're trying to tell this whole universe's story almost in half an hour, so it's like where do you end up? Do you end? And it's hard to find that natural ending, that climax. So I do feel like the show is suffering from the same issue as the comics in that sense.
Yeah, I do get that. I mean, like that's the thing. Like we've just kind of spoken a bit about how the animation didn't work for us, but there were things that did, and like we said at the top, I really liked seeing Peggy Carter again on screen. I think Hayley Atwell's really good. And by the end of it, obviously spoilers for the end of this episode, but you know she reappears in 2012 basically in front of Nick Fury and Clint. Like I was like, okay, cool. Like yeah, I'd watch 5 more episodes of this, seeing what she did in modern day. Like there's enough of a pull there, especially with this idea, because it's like it feels fresh because we haven't seen Peggy in this kind of role. It was fun, and I was like, yeah, I would watch more of it, and I am excited to see what the other episodes would look like.
Well, they've actually said, there was an interview somewhere, I can't remember where they've mentioned potentially bringing Captain Carter back. So
cool.
Because they're already working on season 2, kind of unofficially, officially, and I think they're probably going to do a follow-up, which I do quite like. I think that's interesting, this idea of establishing these stories and then picking up the most popular ones, and continuing them. I think that bodes well for season 2.
I think you can see a world in which exactly that basically. Like I imagine when we look back on these 9 episodes, there'll be some that feel like the pilot episodes of new series, and some that maybe feel like just one. Like I think the zombies one, I'm imagining is going to be quite self-contained. I think the the episode 3, which we know is like the fall of the Avengers and stuff. Like, I imagine that's going to be quite self-contained. But something like this, you could easily see them pick it up and say, okay, we're going to do the Captain Carter series, an animated show, you know, that runs for 4 seasons.
And also, this is officially canon, they're saying, you know.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so following on from Loki, you know, obviously it's not canon in the MCU world, technically, like, you know, blah, blah, blah. But like, yeah, so since everything that happened in Loki, the multiverse has opened up. So apparently these are all genuine glimpses of dimensions, which makes me think maybe we see Captain Carter in the Doctor Strange sequel. Maybe we, you know, who knows? Maybe some of these threads, even if it's just, you know, that classic, like, oh, we see all these portals flying past, and you see it.
Yeah.
Like, even just like a second of Captain Carter would be
that would be really cool. Yeah, because I was watching it. I was like, we can talk a little about whether like, what's the deal with the timelines? Like, is this canon? Is it not? Watching it, I was like, okay, are there any, like, you know, you can't help but do it with Marvel stuff. Like, what are these threads? Is there anything that could make me think something else is happening here? And there wasn't. I mean, it was very self-contained. There's just, you know, we had the concept of the show is introduced at the start, through Jeffrey Wright as the Watcher, which was cool. Like, it's cool to see the Watcher on the screen. It always is. Like, it was cool when we saw them in that Stan Lee cameo, and like, it's just cool. And him kind of setting up the idea that you know, there's a multiverse there's a multiverse of possibilities, and there's, you know, an infinite number of ways things could have gone. And he does refer to the multiverse, like, or the universes that we're seeing in What If, as like new. It's like such a tiny thing, but he was like, let's look at all these new universes, and I was like, are they new because they've just been made by the end of Loki, or is it just a turn of phrase?
That's what I'm assuming. But yeah, you're right. Like, no one's really said. They've said it's canon, but they haven't really explained how. They've just said it's important to the MCU and it's an extension of it. So there's a lot of potential there. Yeah,
I'm really excited to see where it goes. Like that's the thing. There are things I didn't like, but I like animation. I like animated shows enough, and I like I like shows that are half an hour long enough to be like, yeah, like, let's give this a go. And if we come out of the other side of it, like, oh, there are 3 or 4 really big standouts, like, that'd be great.
You know, I think everyone's going to have their favorites too. It's very different stories, very different genres. And for me personally, from watching the first 3, I did feel like each episode got better. For me, episode 1 is the weakest.
Okay.
I really enjoyed episode 2. Like, Chadwick Boseman's final performance in the MCU he was great. Obviously, he's always amazing, and it was also touching just knowing that as well. And there's some surprise characters who come in, which I think is cool. But then my favorite was episode 3, the fall of the Avengers, because you know, it's quite momentous. That's what's so great about What If. It shows you these things that you never will see in the general mainstream films. You know,
that's the thing. Like, Captain Carter was cool because, like I said, like, it was fun to see Peggy Carter again. But I can't wait to be like, I want to see all the Avengers as zombies. Like, the extreme. That's the scope that they can play with in What If, right? Is like, they can do not just character swap people, but do some really kind of like outlandish ideas.
Most of the Marvel actors did come back, but a few didn't. So I just wondered, how did you feel about that? Was it a bit incongruous for you? Did it kind of pull you out a bit?
I think I'm gonna put my foot in it and say that, like, it was nice to hear people's voices again. I am of the mind that, like, voice acting is a very different skill set to screen acting. And I think, unfortunately, when you do something like this, when part of the draw is, oh, it's the same actors playing their roles in animated shows, it's just a different skill set. And I think, unfortunately for me, that meant that a lot of these performances in episode 1 just kind of felt a bit flat. Like, there wasn't, you can tell when people aren't voice actors, is I guess what I'm saying. Like, it was great to hear Hayley Atwell again. It was fun to hear Sebastian Stan again. But I didn't miss Chris Evans because the guy that played Steve Rogers was fine, Josh Keaton. And I kind of wish I would have rather had an entirely new cast of voices to give these characters some, like, oomph, because they just all kind of felt a bit flat, which I know is mean. And I love these actors, so don't come for me. I love these actors, I really do. Like, ask anyone you know, I love Sebastian Stan, but I need, like, I kind of wanted a bit more from all of the performances.
I know what you mean, and I do agree. I think it's very easy to forget how specific a skill voice acting actually is. Because
you're doing all of your emoting with your voice, right? There's no physicality to, you're not acting with your face, you're not kind of moving your body. It's got to all be delivered through your tone.
Yeah, it's funny, and for me, it's kind of a mixed bag. I feel like some of the stars are doing a really good job still for me, but then some of them, yeah, it is a bit flat. Like I didn't in episode 3. Samuel L. Jackson comes in as Nick Fury. He's amazing. You know, he has such an iconic voice, and it just for him it works so well. But yeah, there were some who I wouldn't have minded being swapped out.
I think maybe I guess my when I think about episode 1, I actually. Sebastian Stan did kind of work for me because I could kind of hear that he was like trying, at least, like he was delivering quips with like a bit of energy, and same for Hayley Atwell, like she had a bit of oomph about her. I guess a lot of the smaller characters, obviously, like we got Dominic Cooper back as Howard Stark, we got Toby Jones back as Zola, we got Stanley Tucci back, like, and all those characters were just like, they had a few lines, and those few lines maybe could have been delivered in more exciting ways if you'd have given them to kind of like, you know, jobbing voice actors.
It's a 5-minute job running the studio.
Well, like, I think thinking especially about like someone like Zola, like Toby Jones and Stanley Tucci's characters are kind of like ridiculous, larger than life, evil scientists, and the few lines they had were delivered very like kind of flatly. When you think about, okay, well, if this had been like a 90s cartoon, how those lines would have been delivered differently. They would have been kind of like cackling and chewing the scenery, and it would have been fun to have a bit of that energy, I think.
Definitely. I just want everyone to be like Storm from the 90s.
Yeah, exactly.
That's all I want, right? Handle the winds, the fire, rage, as big as you can, as calm as possible. That's
exactly.
So we talked a lot about season 1 of What If, or the first episode at the very least. But already we should have a little look ahead to the future, I feel. What are we hoping for? What are we expecting from future seasons? I'm sure it won't just be 2 even, to be honest, knowing Marvel the way they're going right now.
So I think I've definitely, I mean, you know the comics better than me, so you probably have some more specific examples in front of mine. I definitely would like, I mean, this is just cheeky, but like change the animation style slightly. Like do some work on the animation, I think would be fun. But I would love to see some really more like kind of weird grounded stuff. Like I always like Spider-Man Noir, and like it's not a What If story, but the Marvel like 1604 like weird historical retelling of some of the characters. Some of that stuff I think I would really enjoy, like to give me characters I know. Like I don't just want to see what if Peter Parker was Doctor Strange. I want to see what if Peter Parker was a journalist in the 30s. Like I want to see that kind of take our characters and really move them into different contexts. I think that could be really fun.
So kind of more like DC Elseworlds.
Yeah, I guess so, yeah.
What DC doing with the situations and stuff. But yeah, I think that'd be cool. And also with Spider-Verse, they've kind of already been doing that a bit, like you say, with the anime and the noir. That would be exciting. I would be into that. And then, concept-wise, I'm trying to wrap my brain. So there are like so many mental ones. But what I am potentially very excited for in the future is, you know, the Watcher has such strong ties to the Fantastic Four. And we know Fantastic Four and X-Men are coming. So I'm kind of excited to see. I know we haven't even seen them yet in the MCU, but I'm also excited to see how they can kind of expand it, because I feel like it's very Avengers centric right now.
Yeah.
Like I know there's a Guardians episode and Spider-Man will be involved, but only who is an Avenger anyway. But yeah, I want to see the MCU continue to expand out beyond just that Avengers core team. And
we're at this like crossroads, aren't we, for the MCU? Well, crossroads to the MCU, but we have the multiverse stuff is happening. All of this like Fantastic Four and X-Men rumor mill is churning. Like I'm sure in the next 2 years things are going to kind of blow up in a different direction, so that's really exciting just to see how those things cross over. And I am curious, like you mentioned earlier, to see whether the worlds of What If get referenced and stuff, whether we see glimpses of Hayley Atwell in person as Captain Carter. Like that could be really really fun just to see, kind of like in the corner, like you said.
Do you know what I would really love? I mean, I know we're not necessarily a fan of the animated style, but how cool would it be if like the Doctor Strange sequel or some future multiverse film actually delves into the animated realm somehow, for like a animated segue? You know, a little bit like, you know, the Doctor Strange when he was having the hallucinations in the first film, and it was a bit like that, but with an actual animated.
Yeah, it'd be cool. Like in the Suicide Squad, James Gunn's The Suicide Squad, and in Cathy Yan in Birds of Prey, when kind of like Margot Robbie, when Harley Quinn kind of like sees the like 2D animated birds and the flowers exploding. Like it would be cool to have some like weird stylization happen in a Doctor Strange movie.
Play with some form a bit more, and What If could definitely be a nice little avenue for that, I think.
Yeah, for sure.
So that's what we thought of the first few episodes of Marvel's What If. So if you disagree or you think there's anything we missed, please let us know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe for more from us and Digital Spy. Thank you so much.
Bye.